He just doesn't know what he's doing. He's just purely based
Mm.
on, he's a walking id. He's a walking ego. He's just a walking childlike man baby who just has instincts like winning and losing.
I want to deliver training, anti-racism training, with a controlled dose of MDMA for participants. You bring me the most racist, you bring me Elon Musk, bring me Donald Trump, give them a little bit of MDMA or Molly, whatever you want to call it, and then see what happens at the end of that session.
Yo everyone, welcome back. Brand new Techish. It is me, Michael Behane. I'm the CEO of Pocket and Pocket Jobs, and I am joined with
Abadesi, CEO of Hustle Crew, half of Techish podcast. Let's go.
Let's go. So we have our show notes, and one of the things we put down is everyone's hanging on right now, basically. And that, I guess, is in relation to the current state of the economy. You know, so off air, Abba, you mentioned, you know, a couple people, obviously, let's not name names, of just like certain scenarios. People are like, yo, if they can't sort things out in a few months or whatever, it's a problem. In general, in the macro picture, like, what are you seeing out there in the streets? Like, there's blood on the streets, really, isn't there, for the average person and everyone, really?
We've just been in this like painful, slow motion recession. I'm speaking specifically about like business to business entrepreneurs. Things are just moving a lot slower than they used to a few years ago, and it's like really depressing. Like this idea of like doing more with less or like facing cuts, it's just like we're in year 3 of that. You know, this is a trend that started in 2022 when all of the like frothy economic energy of the pandemic and the crazy subsidies and interventions that were happening started to fade away, and the world returned to quote unquote normal. And yeah, it's just like really hard out there. Like I just think for like lots of businesses, like I work with a lot of other companies, and a lot of them, you know, had layoffs after layoffs after layoffs. They're a much smaller team. There is a minority of people that are hiring, but even still, like everyone's being very conservative in their spending. And I think the knock-on effect is being felt by businesses, by founders, by entrepreneurs. I do a lot of stuff in the arts as well, like through my board, volunteer positions, and arts funding is also being cut, like from public spending, like governments, but also from like philanthropic organizations. Like everyone's just rolling back. And it's sad. I feel sad for young people as well, honestly. Like if this is the time that you're starting your career, you're going to feel that squeeze in the opportunities that you're offered and how you're treated and what you're expected to deliver and do. Yeah, man, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing two things. I'm seeing obviously young people struggling. It has never been really, really easy for them, really, even over the last kind of 5 years. So in terms of tech. But what I'm also seeing in addition to that now are like senior people who have been let go and are struggling to find new positions, you know, comparable to what they had in terms of salary. And it's almost like the higher you climb, the less positions there are for you. And then definitely, when the market is down, it's even worse, and it's compounded by that. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously, listen, Pocket Jobs, we got a bunch of roles on there, senior, across a lot of different companies. So I got a plug, and we have helped people get roles and stuff like that. But like, yeah, it's very, very difficult. And how do you kind of, you know, we've done episodes on kind of like staying sane after being laid off and stuff like that, so we can revert back to that. But one thing that is frustrating me is that we've got to talk about the orange elephant in the room, right? I think Trump, the thing about Trump is that like people that voted for Trump, they turn a blind eye potentially, or maybe they love it, you know, the racism, anti-immigrant sentiment, all that stuff. But the one thing you normally get when you or what you're supposed to get when you buy the conservative package is that, yeah, they're great for the economy. They can handle the numbers. You know, the economy's going to boom. All the rich people are going to have money and they're going to invest and blah, blah, blah. Bro, he's tanked the economy. He's actually tanked the damn economy. And you might be thinking, why is that relevant to two British people? But the reality, I mean, you're American as well, but that live in the UK. The reality is, if you work in tech, most of your clientele are going to be US or US impacted. And right now, stock market's in the mud, right? He's basically implemented what I would call an anti-growth agenda. Like if you were to get a spy and put them in charge of the presidency, you would say, yo, we're going to do austerity. So we're going to cut. So public spending is down. We're going to implement trade barriers, basically, right? It's literally like you just put Putin's guy in the White House and said, tank the US economy and like, you know, blow it up. And he's pretty much done that blueprint. Obviously, he's got his own kind of, you know, justifications for all those policies. But yeah, and I know a lot of people that started investing 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you know, S&P 500, it only goes up. I can't lose money. And they're crying right now because they're looking at their portfolio and it's gone down. So on that sort of thing, how's your portfolio looking, Abba? Tell me about your portfolio. Is it looking great? Like, are you up and to the right? Like, or were you hedged? Did you have hedges?
Yeah, I've been doubling down on Dogecoin. No.
Yeah.
Well, I play the long game with stocks.
Yeah, you have to, innit?
unlike my husband who like checks his all the time and then just like goes on that emotional roller coaster, I'm just like, this liquidation window is like decades in the making. So like I'm gonna not check it too much. It's interesting because a friend of mine was reading, I don't know where he read it, and it was like this thesis that he's like intentionally making people suffer to unite them and to make himself a hero. But when I was reading the Financial Times yesterday, everyone was like, oh, all of this tariffs stuff is gonna calm down when he sees the impact on the markets, and it hasn't. So who knows what's really going on.
The greatest quote I've ever seen about Donald Trump, and it explains everything. Because sometimes we look at his actions and we're like, maybe he's doing this, maybe he's doing that. There was a former Trump official that said, everyone thinks that Trump is playing three-dimensional chess, when actually the people around him are trying to stop him from eating the pieces. So what that means is we're trying to ascribe these genius moves. Maybe he's trying to put everyone together. Maybe he's trying to tank the market so his rich buddies can like buy up all the assets. I've heard that too. Bruv, it ain't none of that. He just doesn't know what he's doing. He's just purely based on, he's a walking id. He's a walking ego. He's just a walking childlike man baby who just has instincts like winning and losing. He thinks in a very zero-sum way. Oh, Canada has a trade surplus. That means they're winning, we're losing. We got to fight back. Not thinking, but actually, maybe it serves the US to have cheap goods, cheap electricity, cheap lumber. But he only can see in those kind of black and white, zero-sum thinking ways. And so there's no strategy. There's no overarching grand plan. He is trying to eat the chess pieces. And we're sitting there trying to calculate, well, what can we do? What can we do? So yeah, I love that quote. I always go back to that quote because you'd be surprised how many times people come to me and they're like, maybe Trump's doing this. I'm like, he ain't doing nothing smart, bruv. It's just all nonsense in it. But the thing I would say though is about my fellow investors out there is obviously number one, it's about time in the market, not timing the market. So I'm having convos with my loved ones. They're like, yo, maybe we should sell and then try to jump back in again. The reality is most likely you're not able to pull that off. You're never going to know when the bottom is and you're never going to know when the top is, right? So there's no point trying to do that. You got to hold for the long term. The reality is there's been much bigger dips and they tend to recover over time if your window is long. So just stay patient. But the one thing as a tech podcast, we've got to say is that like the Magnificent Seven, which is basically like the Google, the Metas, the Nvidias, blah, 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 they have probably made up too much of the S&P 500. I think they made up around 36% of the S&P 500, which is meant to be top 500 companies. And those 7 companies alone making up near 40%. And there's only so long the hype train can continue. We're thinking that AI is going to be the next kind of, wave that they can ride so they can keep justifying these really, really extravagant valuations. But maybe AGI isn't around the corner. Maybe, maybe it isn't. Maybe there can't be a justification for that level of concentration, and concentration essentially erodes diversification. So we buy these index funds thinking that we're diversified, but we're not really. We're all hedged into these top 7 companies. So maybe me and you actually, Abba, in future episodes need to be more polite about these companies because actually it's messing up our own money. We're like, actually, no, everyone love Meta. I'm joking. What's your thoughts about? Do you have thoughts about diversifying? Like, do you think what? When it comes to your investments, is it property or is it Nigeria land? What are you thinking? Land in Philippines? What are you thinking now?
I think it's really interesting because I definitely feel that when the stock market's down is actually a really good time to buy, right? So like,
True. Facts.
I'm like, okay, I have some like unused cash in my like stocks and shares ISA or my like trading account. So I'm actually just like, well, let me just spend it now because things are looking good price wise. But yeah, in terms of diversifying, I mean, for me, I think it's really just about like my risk appetite. And there have been times in my life when like I had a lot of income where I was very more risk loving and I'd be like, I'm going to like invest in startups. I don't know. I was even looking at buying gold at one point. I don't know. I was just like, let me see what's out there. Who knows? But I think in the current climate and also in the geopolitical landscape that I, as a social entrepreneur focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, find myself, I'm now more concerned with extending the runway of my business. Even if
1,000%.
there's continued volatility, even if there's continued downward pressure on pricing. I would say that in the last few years, our profit margins have been deeply impacted by the lack of budget from corporate clients. So, there's a scenario where I'll have to put more of my personal capital into the business to keep the mission going for 4 more years or 8 years. Who knows how long this person's in charge and how that shapes the world. We used to have a lot of clients from the US and we have much less now. So yeah, I don't know. I think I've become a lot more like risk averse recently, if I'm honest.
Yeah, of course.
And that affects how I think about diversifying. Like I'm just playing it safe, index funds, tracker funds, and even honestly, like high rate savings accounts and things like that. Just because I know the cash is there, if I need it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, one of the smartest guys or smartest investors in the world, Warren Buffett, has been doing that. He apparently has been sitting on $340 billion worth of cash. He sold most of his Apple stock. He sold a lot of his positions in the S&P 500, and he's just sitting around waiting for the opportunity with his cash. Yeah. So if you've got cash on the side, you know, you and Warren B, you're doing the exact same strategy.
Not quite that level. I would not be on this podcast if I was sitting on a few billies.
Hold on, what?
I'd be on a yacht. I'd be on a yacht. Maybe through my satellite phone, but I'd be chilling.
Yeah, there we
I'd
go.
be chilling on the sea.
Don't do that to me. Because you know what? Everyone's got that fantasy of like, when I get rich, man, no one's going to be able to get through to me. Like, yeah, you're going to call your friend and be like, dude, Michael is not available. I will be available to my loved ones. Don't worry.
Hey everyone, it's Abadesi from Techish. Are you a founder promoting a product or a service? Are you recruiting in your team? Well, guess what? You can now advertise on Techish Podcast with promo slots starting from as little as $500 per episode. Get in touch at techishpod@gmail.com. That's techishpod, all one word, @gmail.com to learn more.
I went on TikTok and I saw like this whole concept of buy nothing year. So there's a bunch of kids and grown-ass folks who are basically doing this year where they're like, we're going to do our absolute best to buy nothing unnecessary. That's like no Uber Eats. That's no Ubers. That's no going to Amazon and getting a little something. And when I first saw it, I was like, yo, you people are crazy, man. Come on, you can't live life like this. But to be honest, right now, it's making sense. Well done, people. Clap it up. Because I'm like, the only thing you can control is your own actions. There may be a recession. There may be an economic downturn. You know, there may be a depression. I'm not trying to scare people, but you never know. We have no control. I mean,
we're in a slow-mo downturn, yeah.
It's a slow-mo downturn, but we don't know is this the beginning of the end? Is this the end of the beginning? Whichever one is the right one, I don't know. So like controlling your outgoing, controlling your spending, yo, that's the way, you know what I'm saying, to keep things pushing, right? And that's what I need to do in my business as well. Me and my, you know, COO, we're looking at our numbers and we're like, yo, how do we cut? And it's almost like we're cutting bone now. We're cutting bone. We're getting to the max.
This is the thing though, because it's like, what more can you cut? I mean, we have had this version of this conversation so frequently on the podcast, like for the last couple of years, because and let's face it, like we have seen friends who are no longer operating, like they're no longer in business. That's just like a fact. And
rest in peace.
I just think, I don't know, it just makes me sad. It makes me really sad that there are random like Melania coins raising millions or whatever. And then there's like genuine impact driven, measurable impact driven businesses who are fighting to survive. Like, is this the version of capitalism you all want to live in? Because it's happening and our choices are perpetuating it to some degree. So yeah, good for the people who are buying nothing. I mean, I joined my library because I was like, the amount of money I've spent on that Kindle, the amount of money I have spent on that Kindle. I was like, books are free. It's a 10-minute walk from my flat. It's next to my supermarket. I'm not too fancy to go to the library. And other things, I buy my clothes on eBay or any other secondhand charity shop. I bought a pair of trousers for like £12 the other day from a charity shop. Like, I'm not above that, because I remember when I was a kid, and that was just normal shopping.
1,000%. No, I'm with you.
That was normal shopping before the 6-figure salaries and the tech lifestyle. I was just an ordinary middle-class kid looking for a good deal, looking for a good discount. And I feel very grateful to not be so bougie that I don't feel like I can adjust my lifestyle to the times. Adaptability, it makes life enjoyable, honestly. Like when you're excited that you are treating yourself to a takeout.
Yeah.
That's a good feeling.
I remember being a kid and like, if we lost the football, if it went over the fence, we spent all day looking for it. And like someone was saying to me like, no, you know what, right now my kid would probably just be like, can we get a new football on Amazon? Like, can we just go on Amazon and get a new one? Because it's probably like, quote unquote, so affordable. Relatively speaking, it's much more cheaper than probably what it was when I was a kid. £15, it'll be here tomorrow, whatever. Like, and it's like, yeah, that's probably not the mindset to be had. Like, we are probably too consumer led, too much like consumption. Just, I need it now, get it to me tomorrow, whatever. But what I will say is that, obviously, me and you have the context of we're doing kind of diversity and inclusion related work. So if you are not in our position where potentially you are just starting a business today, I don't want you to think there's no opportunities out there. I feel like there's still an abundance of opportunities. And essentially, me and you are in a situation where we have existing businesses that we're looking after. And we want to make sure that it continues to thrive. But you got to keep one eye open to what else is out there, because there's guys out here making 70K on little crappy AI games or 100K on little crappy AI photo, tweaking games. So like, if you stay open and keep your mind abreast of what's happening with tools like Replit, tools like Cursor, I'm not someone who's saying it's doom and gloom, it's over. There's still opportunities out here. Like one thing I was thinking about, and I had a little clip that go viral about this, about how now software, the cost of building software is basically nil, and also the cost of, not the cost, software is no longer a moat. So if I was, for example, an influencer, let's say I was Ali Abdul, theoretically, right? Why can't Ali Abdul just build a cheap version of a productivity tool, like a Notion, like a CRM, whatever, and just be like, this is Ali Abdul's Notion or Ali Abdul's CRM, right? Like there's opportunities here where maybe you're not the influencer, maybe you partner with the influencer, say, listen, I can build you a software clone of a certain company that makes $1 billion a year. We don't need to make $1 billion a year. We can make $20 million a year, undercutting that price and partnering with an influencer, saying this is the kind of Abadesi or Ali Abdul or whatever product Tim Ferriss, like, you know what I'm saying? So there's opportunities I see. Obviously, I'm very busy working on my current business, but if it's, I don't want people listening to this thinking that our situation is their situation. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, look for angles, look for things, like leverage the current waves that are going up. You know what I'm saying? We're kind of riding a wave that is like middling out, kind of going down. Still opportunities there, but like there's other waves happening simultaneously. And that's my thought basically, right? I don't want it to be too much of a depressing episode where everyone's like, it's over, like let's pack up the bag. Any thoughts on what I'm saying? Like where do you, if you were starting today, this might be a good thought experiment for the both of us, because maybe it will help refresh us after this call for our own businesses. If you were starting today, like where would you look to grow?
I think personally, because I would consider my unique selling points from a character perspective or a personality perspective, communication, presenting, speaking. I'm quite creative. If I was starting from now, I would probably focus on building my audience on one creator platform, whether that's YouTube, whether that's Instagram. I would just, test, rinse, repeat what's helping me grow my followers and grow my engagement. Is it career stories for women in tech? Is it negotiation for founders? Is it sales? Is it a little bit of lifestyle, a little bit of this is how I stay fit, this is how I stay productive? But I would just pick a platform, double down on it, and then as quickly as I can get a landing page up for brand partners, or maybe partner with an agency if I could get a good deal, and aim to grow a steady 4 to 5 figure monthly revenue through brand partnerships, and just like go down that route. Because sometimes it's not about reinventing the wheel, it's just about identifying what you're good at. Obviously there are challenges with scaling. Like if I think of when Hustle Crew was doing its best, because there were more trainers than just me, we were high 6 figures going on 7 figures revenue, right? And I think it could be a lot harder to do that as a one woman band. But hey, like high 5 figures, low 6 figures just for creating content, that's a good life. That's a good life.
Yeah. I mean, listen,
and it's on your terms, on your schedule versus having a job. So yeah, I mean, I'd probably just do that, man. Chill.
I also wouldn't, I think we have these limiting beliefs. I think it is possible to make 7 figures as like just a one-on-one personal brand. You just have to have high touch points where you're doing the coaching, and then you do digital products or, cohort-based stuff. Like, there's people that do that revenue. If it exists, if someone's able to do it, then it's possible.
But you don't want to fall into that trap of like burning out, because I think the challenge with being like a content creator is that it's even like in a way it's almost harder to turn off. Like every moment you live becomes potential content,
right?
And I see people who I admire, millions of followers, and it's like every aspect of their life has been commoditized, like their bedtime routine, their relationship with their partner. Like here I am in bed kissing and canoodling, and I was like, God, like it's like when people would say like you're not working from home, you're living in your office during COVID. People were saying that, and I was like, that for me is just like, I don't know, like I think I just value privacy a little too much. And also my husband would just be like, he doesn't even let me post him on my stories. He's like, no. So it just wouldn't be feasible. But yeah, you're right. It is possible. But then I think doing it in a way that's sustainable, where you're not burning out or stressing, I think is something to be mindful of.
I think we've got to be honest. And you've told me this sometimes, maybe I'm misquoting you, so correct me if I'm wrong, which is that basically there is a pressure sometimes as women to like lean more into lifestyle-based content, even if you didn't initially start off with lifestyle-based content. Oh, here's my partner, here's my house, whatever. I'll send you a link. There's a few creators that I follow that like, for whatever reason haven't leaned into that, and they've done well. They're just career coaches, and they seem to not have to kind of cross that line, right? So it probably is possible, but you're right, there's that pressure. And I saw a tweet where somebody said, why is it that like podcasts, he said specifically black podcasts that I follow, they start off talking about intellectual subjects, and then they end up going into like relationship based like content. 50,
play
like,
to the algorithm.
Exactly. And I was like, that's unfortunate, but the problem is the algo that is effing up people's lives. Like people want to come up with these lofty goals, I want to uplift the community, I want to do some serious content, and eventually you're just like the short forms, you try to grow on short form, and then that ends up just pushing you down to the lowest common denominator based content. I'm rambling, but I think it's possible.
What would you do? What would you do if you're like starting out? How would you approach starting from zero and getting to one? Yeah.
So I would definitely be building personal brand. I would definitely be building content about my journey. I would be following the whole kind of like document, not necessarily have to like be the finished product, which Gary Vee kind of talked about years ago. So if I'm trying to build whatever I'm building, I'm documenting the whole process, almost like a reality TV show as an entrepreneur. There's going to be a rotating cast of characters in my reality TV. So whatever I'm building, people are invested in me straight away. Then I distribute from that. Most likely it would be either be some software that I'm building with AI, some sort of community-based business, basically. And I probably would do it in a space where it is kind of like career work centric, because that then at least people can justify spending money on it and not necessarily like, you know what I'm saying, nothing too loosey goosey. That's probably what I would be looking at. I would be looking at also potentially partnering with other influencers, maybe going to other influencers, like I said, with the whole Ali Abdul concept of being like, I can give you the product, I can give you the business acumen, I can run the operations, you just be the kind of nice face of it, basically. So there's that. And then also like what I'm doing with my current company, we're launching Granville, which is like a B2C community for senior Black tech leaders, where historically my company's always monetized via B2B. Like this brand wants to hire, this brand wants to sponsor, you know, this podcast or newsletter or whatever. Now we're looking at how do we do high touch stuff for senior people in their careers, bringing them together, giving them content, giving them events, whatever. So there's definitely opportunities. It's just, yeah, you got to kind of just stay open and look. And what are the trends that are growing and what are the trends that are declining? It's just always easier to go when the wave is going in your direction and not the opposite way. To quote a cliche.
I mean, I already have my next business idea. I just trying to decide when I will have the time to develop it. I want to do more stuff.
Can I invest? Can I get a taste? Can I get a taste? Can I want my beat? Can I get a bit? Can I touch something? Go on.
I'll let you know. But yeah, it's
what,
more.
You let
it's
me
like
know. Damn.
Well, you know, maybe I'll just own it. Maybe I'll just own it all and see. But yeah, I think it's interesting because once you know what it takes to start something, as you know, because you've kind of just started something and given the Granville, it's all just about like when you want to pull the trigger.
Yep.
Facts. Mentally and physically. So it's like I know what needs to happen, I know what I need to do, but I'm just trying to decide when I'm ready to, like, it's like a athletics event or something like that. It's like, you know, you're going to go for the run or the bike ride or whatever. It's just like, when am I going to start? Because once I start, the marathon has begun.
For real. Is there anything else you want to talk about in this episode? I feel like this one has been more of a therapy session for business owners.
But for more like for me and you.
and me too. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's been a therapy session. You've eavesdropped on techish therapy as we talk about business. One last funny point in it, because obviously like me and you are obviously in the DEI space. I was talking to Jason, who's my CEO, and I was like, right now, DEI, man, it feels like I'm a drug dealer, honestly, because like, you know, like technically Trump has made it kind of illegal for like the government. Yeah, it's made it illicit. Like a lot of companies are shook, and we're just like, no, we swear on the sales call, like, no, it's not what you think it is. We're actually like in this area, this is actually part of the L&D budget, and it's like, bro, I feel like a drug dealer right now, having to like sell a product in the
prohibition era.
Who wants some DEI? Who wants some DEI? I got some
bootleg.
DEI.
Bootleg DEI, bootleg anti-racism. Yeah, that's so funny. But it's interesting because, you know, at the end of the day, like what we're selling is like productivity, communication, trust, compassion. Like, you know, it's all the same stuff. It's people stuff. We're just selling people stuff. Oh wow, cool! I found the glasses I thought I lost. Sorry, side note.
But you know what you said, but all that stuff you're saying about, you know, selling people, we're selling things, you know. That's what every drug dealer says. We're selling community. You know what I'm saying?
Selling love, baby.
Come to my crack den. There's lots of people here. It's community. Anyways,
look,
all right, cool.
I've been saying it for time. Sorry, I just want to say one last thing. For a long time, I've been saying, I don't know like what research lab wants to partner with me on this, but I want to deliver training, anti-racism training, with a controlled dose of MDMA for participants. I just feel like there's an opportunity for people to rewire their neural pathways under the influence of mind-altering substances. You bring me the most racist, you bring me Elon Musk, bring me Donald Trump, give them a little bit of MDMA or Molly, whatever you want to call it, and then see what happens at the end of that session. I'm telling you, they'll come out of there quoting Rennie Edo Lodge and bell hooks.
Abadesi is going to save the world with MDMA. All right, everyone, we will see you next week at Techish Pod on Instagram, on Threads. I'm not saying X anymore. We're done with X. And follow us on YouTube where you can see us visually. And we will catch you very, very shortly. Peace. Bye.
Bye.